Okay. Na sakale samana korita shakati deho nata yatopata.
Sakala samana korita shakati deho nata yatajata.
Tabbe toga.
Kabito koyaibo
Harinama suke aparada bihata.
Kabito gaibo Harinama suke aparada bihata.
Kabbe no kripa lambiya e jana kritata hi benata.
Kabbe no kripa labya e jana kritarta hoi bonata.
Ashakti buddhina ame atidina koromore atmasata.
Shakti buddhina amyati dina koromore atmasata.
Yogyata vichare kichu nahi paye tomara karuna sara.
Yogyata vichare kichu nahi paye tomara karuna sara.
Karuna na hoile kandiya kandiya prana naraki bohara.
Karana na hoile kandiya kandiya prana naraki
Please read the English.
Let's do it one more time. That was Kripa Bindu Diya Koroe Dase Trinapeka Atihina.
Kripa Bindu Diya Koroe Dase Trinapeka Atihina.
Sakala Sahane Baladiya Koro Nijamane Spriyahina.
Sakala Sahane Baladiya Koro Nijamane Spriyahina.
Sakale Samana Korite Shakati Deonata Jata Jata.
Sakale Samana Korite Shakati Deonata Jata.
Tapito Gaibo Harinama Suke Aparada Habehata.
Tapito Gaibo Harinama Suke Aparada Habehata.
Kabiheno Kripa Labiyai Jana Kritatarta Hoi Bena.
Kabiheno Kripa Labiyai Jana Kritata Hoi Benata.
Shakti Buddhina Amyati Dina Kuramore Atmasata.
Shakti Buddhina Amyati Dina Kuramore Atmasata.
Sometimes it's elongated. Shakti Buddhi. You remember how it was elongated sometimes? Shakti Buddhi Namyati Dina Koramore Atmasata. Shakti Buddhi Namyati Koramora Atijata. Jogyata vichare kichanahi pai tomara karuna sa.
Yogyata vichare kichanahi pai tomara karuna sara.
Karuna na hoile kandiya kandiya pranana raki boara.
Karuna na hoile kandiya kandiya Pranana Rakibo Ara.
Jaya Bhakti Siddhanta Srila Prabhupada. Bhakti Siddhanta Srila Prabhupada.
Bhakti Siddhanta
Jaya Bhakti Siddhanta Srila Prabhupada. Bhakti Siddhanta Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya Bhakti Siddhanta Srila Prabhupada. Bhakti Siddhanta Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada.
So that, of course, is Gurudev from Sharanagati by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. And he prays, Gurudev, by a drop of your mercy, make this servant of yours more humble than a blade of grass. Give me strength to bear all trials and troubles, and free me from all desires for personal honor. O Lord and Master, invest me with the power to properly honor all living beings. Only then will I sing the holy name in great ecstasy, and will all my offenses cease. O Lord and Master, when will this devotee be blessed by obtaining your mercy? I'm low, fallen, and devoid of all strength and intelligence. Please make me beloved servant. When I examine myself, I find nothing of value. Your mercy is therefore essential to me. If you're not merciful, I will constantly weep, and I will not maintain my life any longer. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura ki. Could I use that Bhagavad Gita? Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're going to read a verse and purport from Bhagavad Gita as it is, 6th chapter, text 42. Ata va yoginam eva. Ata va yoginam eva. Kule bhavati dimatam. Kule bhavati dimatam. Etad di Dhurlabha taram. Etad di durlabham taram. Loke janma yad idrisham. Loke janma yad idrisham. Atava yoginam eva. Kule bhavati dimatam. Etadhi dhulabhataram. Loke janma yadishwaram. Idrisham. Atava yoginam eva. Kule bhavati dimatam. Etadhi dhulabhataram. Loke janma yadidrisham. Atava yoginam eva. Et dimatam. Etadhi durlabham taram. loke janma yanishwaram atava yoginameva le bhavati dhimatam. Atava, or yoginam, of learned transcendentalists. Eva, certainly. Kule, in the family. Bhavati, takes birth. Dhimatam, of those who are endowed with great wisdom. Etat, this. He, certainly. Durlabha taram, very rare. Loke, in this world. Janma, birth. Yet, that which. Idrisham, like this. Translation, or, and this is in parentheses, and it really doesn't apply to the great personalities we'll talk about, but the verse goes, or, if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly, such a birth is rare in this world. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Birth in a family of yogis or transcendentalists, those with great wisdom, is praised herein because the child born in such a family receives a spiritual impetus from the very beginning of his life. It is especially the case in the Acharya or Goswami families. Such families are very learned and devoted by tradition and training, and thus to become spiritual masters. In India, there are many such Acharya families, but they've now degenerated due to insufficient education and training. By the grace of the Lord, there are still families that foster transcendentalists, generation after generation. It is certainly very fortunate to take birth in such families. Fortunately, both our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and our humble self had the opportunity to take birth in such families by the grace of the Lord. And both of us were trained in the devotional service of the Lord from the very beginning of our lives. Later on, we met by the order of the transcendental system. Hare Krishna. Because of my arrogance, because of my insufficiency in realization, because of my many faults, would you please sincerely pray that maybe some glorification can come out on these great souls? Om Jnana-timirandasya Ginanjana Salakya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shirta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhu bevacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you. Very auspicious day in many regards. Let's start off with Purushottam Das, 24th prominent devotee of Lord Nityananda. He was the son of Sadashiva Kaviraj. He's the 10th Gopal, meaning the 10th cowherd associate of Lord Nityananda in Gaura Leela. He's Stoka Krishna in Krishna Leela. So he's an eternal associate of both Balaram, Krishna, and Lord Nityananda Chaitanya. He was merged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda Prabhu and always engaged in childish play with Lord Krishna. That's from Adi Leela 11:8. Says, 39. So Purushottam Das was never externally conscious of his material body. Lord Nityananda Chandra enacted many pastimes from within his heart. Antya Leela 5, 741 and 2. And I already mentioned he was Stoka Krishna, is Stoka Krishna in Krishna Leela. So it's his disappearance day. For us, it's a bit of a name, not much relation, but there is auspiciousness in hearing his name, in saying the name, hearing of his glories, what little drops were there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Anyone who's mentioned even once in such exalted scriptures, eternal associates of the Lord, we can certainly benefit by some attempt at glorifying them. Today is also the disappearance day of Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj in the centennial year of Srila Prabhupada, 1996. That celebration, on this day in the evening, he was speaking on the glories of Lord Jagannath, describing how Lord Krishna, Balaram, and Subhadra Maharani had left Dwarka to go to Vrindavan. And when Radha and Krishna first caught each other's eyes, the glance of their eyes, then he went into ecstasy and could not continue speaking. And in that mood, with the thoughts and glorification of that Leela, the union after intense separation of a long time, then basically he left this world. He excused himself, lay on the bed, took a picture of his worshipful deity, Gopal Ju, and left. The GBC made a resolution after he passed away saying that his life and his disappearance pastimes are exemplary and worthy of hearing and glorifying for everyone. Those who knew him knew he had all 26 qualities of a Vaishnava. He was born in a family of devotees. From his very childhood he was serving Krishna, Gopal Ju. Ju means very dear. It's an endearing term. We don't use it that much in Iskcon. My Prabhu Jananivas, he's come to the point of referring to Madhava as Madhava Ju. Means a very affectionate relationship. So he was born in a family of Kirtaniyas, and he engaged in the glorification of the Lord from his birth to his last breath. He was given 3 instructions by Srila Prabhupada. When he first met Prabhupada in Vrindavan, he didn't have a spiritual master up until about the age of 45. He left home, traveled throughout northern India on foot and train, and looking for a guru. When he came to Vrindavan and he saw Srila Prabhupada walking on morning walks, he started trailing behind. Finally got courage to come up closer and listen. First time they spoke, Srila Prabhupada asked him, "Do you have a guru?" "No." "I'll give you sannyas." Very shortly thereafter, he gave him Harinam and second initiation. Would have given him sannyas, but it was too much for the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. They couldn't understand, who is this somebody out of nowhere? A simple brahmachari, some wandering mendicant. But within a year's time, Srila Prabhupada gave him sannyas, gave him 3 instructions. I want you to go to Bhuvaneshwar, and I want you to establish a temple there. He did, after much trials and tribulation. I want you to translate all my books into Oriya. He did. He had a vow. He would translate X amount of Srila Prabhupada's books, and he wouldn't eat until he had finished that vow. Great austerities. He was told to accept disciples, which he did, from around the world. He left his base of Bhuvaneshwar some like 20 some odd times, 24, 27 times, going to different parts of the world. From personalities like Achinchana Krishnadas Babaji, these next two are also godbrothers of Srila Prabhupada. Bhakti Rakshaka Sridhar Maharaj, Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, they all said he was a Mahabhagavat. That Krishnadas Kaviraj goes, Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj said he was in Krishna Leela. They all said he had attained the stage of bhava and was always in the ecstasy of lovingly serving Krishna. He wasn't one of you and I, conditioned souls, who are trying to reawaken our Krishna consciousness. He came to share Krishna consciousness under the guidance and shelter of Srila Prabhupada. Alongside study of Srila Prabhupada's books, it's worth reading those that he wrote. The Siddhanta of our philosophy, he understood very, very deeply. There came a time when many disciples became delusioned and they were leaving Iskcon, and he took it upon himself to travel around the world to try and re-enthuse them, to tell them, why are you going elsewhere? Everything is in Srila Prabhupada's books. But for it to be revealed, you have to pass the test of the spiritual master. If one shows his determination in surrender and service, then the spiritual master is pleased and will bestow his blessings upon the disciple, and thus full revelation will come by mercy of Guru and Krishna. He had such revelations, and he shared it so wonderfully. He also, that's basically two rolled in one. Why would you leave Iskcon? Do not leave Iskcon. Why would you be disloyal? Why would you be unchaste? Unfaithful? And leave Iskcon? Do you know how painful that is to Srila Prabhupada? And everything's in his books. And there was one other resolution Desari had, and I forget that, so I apologize. But anyway, this is somebody who was sitting right back here on this same reupholstered chair, gave class here. Some of us had the good fortune to have his association here and in India. Someone we know, someone who we can take shelter of and be encouraged in our attempt to surrender and serve our spiritual masters. It's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's appearance day. Appearance, disappearance, non-different. It's like the sun rising and setting. The sun is always gloriously present and shining, whether we can see and appreciate or not. For me to try to attempt these personalities, it's like an insect or a crow trying to say something. An iceberg, you can see a little bit on the top of the ocean, but an iceberg it's like a mountain underneath, out of sight from the conditioned souls. Such as the glories of these Vaishnavas. Bhaktivinoda Thakura prays that may I have the good fortune to meet a transcendental Vaishnava. And if I can recognize his characteristics, his qualities, then by his grace I can surrender, serve, and get his mercy. So that's what we do on these days. Every day we worship Srila Prabhupada and Guru Puja. Every day we sing samsara prayers, worshiping Srila Prabhupada and our spiritual masters, to attempt to reestablish our eternal relationship with Lord Chaitanya and Radha and Krishna. You absolutely have to go through the spiritual master. And the spiritual master is not alone. He's not an island unto himself. He's simply a servant in the bucket brigade, coming from Goloka Vrindavan, bringing down the mercy to douse out the forest fire of misery that we're suffering in. Every single spiritual master will give complete credit and thanks to their spiritual master for any thing. Bhaktivinoda said, I have no good qualities. Your mercy is therefore essential to me. Any activities that they perform, any incredible, miraculous accomplishments, they always give credit to their spiritual master and the Lord. It's only their mercy. Somehow or other they're using me. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was born February 6 in 1874. We know he's the son of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. Bhaktivinoda Thakur came to this earth at a time when Gaudiya Vaishnavism was in great disrepute. People thought it was a joke, it was a mode of life or thought, philosophy of simply degradation, licentiousness. Single-handedly, he convinced the intellectuals of India that no, this is the pristine, highest, most complete understanding of the absolute truth. And he spread the chanting of the holy names amongst locals, amongst the, you might say, common people, villagers, far and wide with his Namhata programs, enlivening people to take up regularly the chanting of Hare Krishna and hearing scripture, satsangas. But he didn't think he could do enough by himself, so he prayed to the Lord, please send one of your own men to my family to take up this service. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was that person. When he appeared, he had all 32 symptoms of an exalted person. You can look it up in Chaitanya Charitamrita, what those qualities or symptoms are. Lord Chaitanya had them. All the great exalted Vaishnavas, Srila Prabhupada, etc., possessed them. Astrologer did his chart and said, this chart it's the best chart I've ever seen. This is no ordinary person. We know the pastimes Srila Prabhupada spoke of often when speaking of his own spiritual master. He gives 6 recorded lectures on the appearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, more lectures recorded on that festival date than any other in the database. Lord Jagannath's cart stopped for 2 or 3 days in front of the house where the Thakur lived, and Bhagavati, the mother of Bhaktisiddhanta, brought the child out on the 2nd or 3rd day to present him to the Lord. The Brahmins took him up, placed him at the feet of the Lord, and a garland from Lord Jagannath fell down upon him. Everyone recognized, whoa, this child has received the mercy of Jagannath. When he was 4 years old, to show how he was no ordinary conditioned soul like you and I, he came in the house, saw a mango, and he ate it, enjoyed it. And his father chastised him, oh, this is wrong. What have you done? These mangoes have not been offered to our deities, have not been offered to the Lord. At 4 years old, he took a vow never to eat another ripe mango, something he followed for the rest of his life. When he was 7 years old, he received tulsi beads from his father that Bhaktivinoda got from Jagannath Puri and gave him the Maha Mantra. So like Srila Prabhupada says, my father was my spiritual well-wisher, and then he met, by the mercy of the Lord, arranged with the Lord, his eternal spiritual father. In the same way, Bhaktivinoda trained him, guided him. And from 7 years old, he started chanting Hare Krishna. This one book, it's a biography by Bhakti Kusham Shramam, says that he also gave him a name, Hari, instead of Bimala Prasad, named after the Devi, Bimala, who receives Prasadam from Lord Jagannath first before anybody else gets any of it. And thus it becomes not simply Jagannath Prasad, but Bimala Prasad. So that was his birth name. He says he was given the name Hari. I'd never heard that before, but there it is. He also gave him the Nishinga Maha Mantra. Do you know what the Nishinga Maha Mantra is? Ugambiram Mahavishnum Jalatam Savatomakam Nishingam Bishanam Badram Mrityum Namamyaham. Interestingly enough, in one Kalpa of Lord Brahma, that is the mantra he receives from the Lord for his enlightenment to be able to create in service to the Lord, not the Kama Gayatri, Gopal Gayatri. Powerful mantra, Lord Nrsingadev. When Bhaktivinoda was building a house in Calcutta called Bhakti Bhavan, in digging up the foundation, they found a Shila, a Kurma Shila, and Bhima Prasad at this age, 7, began all the Vaishnav practices, tilak and etc., and began to worship the Shila very nicely. At 11 years old, he learned the trade. I guess you could use that word. Doesn't sound like the best use, but he developed under the guidance of his father the ability to take care of a printing machine. He learned the skill of printing and proofreading. 11 years old. We know later on that he installed several printing presses, 4 throughout India, when Gaudiya Math was going strong. And he would install them like he would deities, basically. They were worshipable paraphernalia of the Lord. At Bagh Bazaar, the famous temple in Calcutta, the printing press would be like in the foyer where you could see, the Lord could see it. He could hear it. Clack, 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 clack. Printing the glorification of the Lord. Very important, this Priyat Mridanga. We know that from Srila Prabhupada embracing the desire of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. When he was 24 years old, he met Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj at Sukada, how do you say it, Sukadananda Kunj in Godruma Dweep. Bhaktivinoda Thakura by this time was living there. This is the island of Kirtan in Navadweep Dham. It's very close, a stone's throw, 3 or 4 blocks away from Lord Nityananda's marketplace of the holy names, Sarabi Kunj. Thakur Bhaktivinoda was giving daily recitation on Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures, and Gaurkishore Das Babaji came from Vrindavan at that time. He'd been there for a couple of decades, I believe. He came there, a Kinchana Babaji, renounced, completely renounced, Vairagya, renunciation personified. And he came to this householder's home, Bhaktivinoda Dutt. and he heard him speak the glories of the Lord, and he began to regularly come. In fact, Bhaktivinoda Thakura built him a little tiny kutir along the wall. Now we have the door. When you come up, you can see inside, but previously that was the back of it, and the door was facing the wall. If the wall's here, the door's facing it. No one could see him as he would privately chant. No one would disturb him. That was the idea. And he would listen to the glorification. So after a couple of years of his attending like that, Bhaktivinoda told his son, Bimala Prasad, you should take shelter of Gaurkishore Das Babaji as your spiritual master. We know the pastime where it took some convincing. He had taken one disciple before, he told Bimala Prasad, but he ran away. He left him. So he wasn't interested in trying to perform that service anymore. He had failed. But finally he was convinced, all right, I'll ask Mahaprabhu. Some days later, Bimala asked him, well, what did Mahaprabhu say? He said, I forgot to ask. Please. Okay, I'll ask. So then when he came back sometime later, what was the answer? Well, I asked, but I didn't get an answer. And that's when, tearfully, with his heart breaking, he said, if you don't give me your mercy, my life is not worth living. But why should you give me mercy? I'm a strict moralist, and you worship that great debauchee Krishna. Why would he deem that I should receive his mercy? And seeing the sincerity of purpose, he accepted him as his disciple, told him to go take bath in the Ganga, and he gave him the name Sri Varshavani Devi Dayatya Das, which means a servant of the lover of Lord Krishna. And he told him, no, I'll say this first. I'm looking for that songbook. Where did I put that? Red book? Thank you. So Gaurkishore Das Babaji never let anybody touch his lotus feet. That's not something he was interested in. But upon initiating him, he put his feet on Sri Varshavani Devi Dayatya Dasa's head and ordered him preach the absolute truth, keeping aside all other activities. And of course, this became the life mission of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I wanted to read the translation to his, we'll be doing Pushpanjali, saying the Sanskrit this midday, 10 till 12, please be on time. Sri Varshavani Devi Dayatya Kripa Bindu Diya. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Varshavani Devi Dayatya Das, who's favored by Srimati Radharani, who is an ocean of transcendental mercy and the deliverer of the science of Krishna. Madhuryo Jvala Premadya. Offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the personified energy of Sri Chaitanya's mercy, who delivered devotional service, which is enriched with the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna. Madhuryo Jvala Premadya. That golden, molten, brilliant love, coming exactly in the line of revelation of Srila Rupa Goswami. Namaste Gauravani. Offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are the personified teachings of Lord Chaitanya. You're the deliverer of the fallen souls. You do not tolerate any statement which is against the teachings of devotional service enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Prabhupada said, practically I'm the only one preaching in an uncompromising way against worship of the demigods and Mayavad philosophy. Everybody else waters it down or just misleads people. Practically speaking, I'm the only one, and this is falling in the line of my spiritual master. He was uncompromising In fact, I think I've read it before to you that he apologized at the end of his days, knowing that he had discouraged some people, that some people had actually become angry at him for speaking the truth. Did I lose that? That would have been horrible. Let's see. Give me 1 second here. I might be able to do it verbatim. Instructions at the end of his life. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna. How could I do that? Okay, maybe this is it. No, it's the wrong paragraph. Wrong. Anyway, he said, I've discouraged many people because I spoke uncompromisingly the absolute truth. Hopefully at some time in their life they'll realize that I was their well-wisher and not their enemy. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur encouraged those who would follow his instructions, taking his shelter, that don't worry what people think. If you do your best to please Guru and Krishna, then the results are up to them. Every living entity is independent and can accept or reject the opportunity for devotional service. Our duty is to simply present it. And then even if there aren't, I found it 3:45. Thank you, Krishna. And even if there aren't people there to hear you speak, you should continually glorify the Lord. Let the four walls hear you speak. Why? Because Krishna Gauranga will be pleased. I've given anxiety to many people as I've been compelled to speak genuinely truthful words, and as I've told people to worship Krishna without any hypocrisy. There are possibly many people who even consider me to be an enemy, so that they may become eager to perform the sincere service of Sri Krishna, freed from other desires and deceitfulness. I've given various types of anxieties to numerous people. One day or another, they will certainly be able to understand this. So Srila Prabhupada wants us to do the same. He expects the disciples to speak uncompromisingly. It's an art to present it in a way in which you do your best to make it palatable, but we are not trying to be accepted by those who are averse to the service of Krishna. That's not the purpose of this movement or for any member of it. We're trying to please Guru and Krishna and offer them the opportunity to rejoin the family. That's the mission of Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Prabhupada. So he told him when he initiated him, Gorkashore Das Babaji told Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur when he initiated him, come close to me. Don't go anywhere else. Reject your knowledge, your purity, your aristocracy. Come close to me. Whatever you require, as many rooms, houses, palaces, and mansions, as much scholarship, skills, and self-control and renunciation, you'll get. But don't be enamored by any of these things. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that before he met his spiritual master, Srila Gorkashore Das Babaji, he didn't have a practical understanding of application of devotional service. He was very proud that he could defeat anybody in debate. He was very proud that he was a scholar that was unmatched by anybody. And he was very, very strict in his moral principles. But associating with this person who saw that everything I thought was praiseworthy and worthy of aspiring for in life, he saw it like garbage. He had no attraction to it whatever. He wasn't impressed in the least. In fact, he said, give them all up. Come to me. So by the mercy of Gorkashore Das Babaji, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur did that. He received 3 instructions from Gaurkishore Das Babaji. Don't make any disciples. Don't associate with others. And don't go to the world of Maya, Calcutta. Now, I've mentioned these things before. Quite interesting how he faithfully followed all these instructions. He took on 60,000 initiated disciples. But he didn't consider them to be his disciples. He considered them to be his guru. And that their sincerity of purpose, their inclination to serve Krishna, inspired him in wanting to develop the same desire. That's paraphrasing his words. To associate with somebody means you take something from them. Often we discuss about qualities, but in any way that if you're associating, by definition, you're getting something from that person. But he didn't consider himself taking anything from anyone except mercy from his spiritual master. That's how he saw his reciprocations. And don't ever go to the world of Maya, Calcutta. Well, he established a Gaudiya Math, an embassy of the Yog Pit, the center of the spiritual universe, manifest here in this world. He always stayed in the Holy Dham because he stayed where the exclusive service of Lord Chaitanya and Krishna was taking place. So he stayed for some time, but his father wanted help because his father had constructed the Yog Pit temple. So he went to help his father in that regard. It was out in the jungle, basically. Nobody was coming for all practical purpose, but they had a lot to do. And his son helped him in that way after having spent some extended time with Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. His father actually chastised him. What, you think you can just stay and engage in chanting Hare Krishna for your own benefit and that's it? What kind of renunciation is that? That you'll forsake the world which is fully miserable, deprived of the service and mercy of Lord Chaitanya? Is this what your concept of devotional service is? And with that chastisement, he came and took up service at the Yog Pit under his father's guidance. He also, in 1905, when he was 31 years old, took a vow to chant 3 lakhs of names. How many is that? 190-something rounds a day, minimum. I found that interesting. Minimum. Like we take a vow to chant 16 rounds minimum every day. He took a vow to minimally chant 3 lakhs. 10 million names a month, minimally, until he had chanted 1 billion names. It took him 9 years and 4 months to complete. He chanted in front of a deity of Mahaprabhu. You can see that deity there by Nirdaya Ramapati. Nirdaya Ghat, or what's the name of the mutt there? What do they call that mutt? It's by the river. You go. It's a real long ways going to the river. Anyway, you can see the deity that he chanted to. He constructed a little bamboo hut there, and he just did it once, and as time went on, it became in disarray, disrepair, and he would simply hold the umbrella. We all know the story, and continue chanting. And Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj said, I can see the renunciation of Sri Rupa Raghunath manifest in my Prabhu. He is very pleased with it. And he also was writing at that time books. He also initiated a couple of disciples. And he also did work around the Mahat. I mean, Hare Krishna. An ordinary soul can't do that. I want to mention this because it glorifies Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. In 1906, he was in Kulia, what is now modern-day Navadvip, and he was lecturing on the 3 levels of bhakti, or 3 types of devotees, Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttama. And he explained them from the 11th canto. And then after explaining Kanishta and Madhyam, he said, basically 11:2:45 says that the Uttama Adhikari sees the Supreme Lord within the heart of everyone, and that everything is within the Lord. That's the essence of the verse. And he said, what more can I say to explain this verse? My Gurudev, the personification of this verse, lives here among us in Kulia. Study his character, and you'll understand the meaning of Uttama. At that point, he turned his head and looked in a direction he hadn't been looking at in some time and speaking, and he noticed his spiritual master there. He'd been listening to him the whole time. And when he saw that there was a chance that Bhaktisiddhanta, Shivarshabhanavi Devi Dayatya Das, was going to glorify him, then he immediately got up and left. He would come and visit his spiritual master across the river there in Kulia occasionally, but this one servant had come to the association of Gaurkishore Das Babaji, and everybody basically accepted he's the main guy, he's the main servant. He accepted the offerings people would make to Gaurkishore Das Babaji. He's the one who cleaned out the latrine that he chanted in at one point, etc., etc. But he wasn't a sincere Vaishnava. He was proud and envious. And Bhaktisiddhanta would come to see his spiritual master, and he wouldn't let him see him. No, you can't see him now. He's busy. So he would pay his obeisances from afar. His guru would be inside the hut, inside the latrine, which whatever time frame it was. And one time he came, and Gaurkishore Das Babaji heard Bhaktisiddhanta, and he came out. And he had been he had just gotten through chastising somebody for asking if they could have dust from his lotus feet. He put them through the ringer. And then, with his disciple, Bhaktisiddhanta, took the dust from his lotus feet and he rubbed it all over his head. And listen to the mood in which Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur received that mercy. He thought, because he hadn't been allowed to see his guru for some time, he thought his spiritual master was being sarcastic and pointing out how fallen he was and unqualified he was. And then he left after receiving the dust. He came back 6 months later, and once again, Gaurkishore Das Babaji heard him, came outside in the latrine, and he said, "Bring Bhaktivinoda Prabhu from that world of Kali." He was residing in Calcutta at the time. "Bring him back here to Godruma. People are attacking me with their annoying talks." He had no good association. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, if the effect of the mercy of you putting your dust on my lotus feet, if that still is intact, if any of your mercy still remains, then why are you testing me like this? I won't fail the test. I know that both you and Bhaktivinoda Thakur are eternally residing on the bank of Radha Kund, and that neither of you ever enter into the kingdom of Maya. Gaurkishore Das Babaji, hearing this, said, yes. I know that Bhaktivinoda Thakur and you are both directly Lord Nityananda. All your activities are according to Mahaprabhu's desire. How can insignificant people comprehend you? So, let's see. Those are orders and reciprocations with Gaurkishore Das Babaji that his disciple, that Bhaktisiddhanta had with Gaurkishore Das Babaji. Also, he received instructions from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He had 4 instructions. Let's see. This is where my notes might be a little scattered because it wasn't. But he asked him to do 4 things. Primarily, these are the 4 main things. You should serve and develop the Dham. So he did that with the Yog Peeth, and then he also did his own Sri Chaitanya Mat there. And he established temples throughout Navadvip Dham. He did the parikrama, established parikrama of Navadvip. So he served the Dham, developed the Dham. Prabhupada said all the acharyas have done something for service to the Dham. And he said, I likewise would like to do something. That's why he has us engaged in building a temple of Vedic planetarium. He said, establish Daivi Varnashram. This is very important because a very huge, commonly accepted misconception was that a Brahmin is someone born in a Brahmin family, and these boys, you're giving the sacred thread, you're giving sannyas, and they weren't born in Brahmin families. They were caste conscious. They didn't understand Daivi Varnashram. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta followed that order by following the tradition of Bhagavatam, of our acharyas, etc., dictations of Scripture, that anyone who takes to the devotional service of the Lord, he's better than a Brahmin. He certainly manifests all Brahminical qualities. So he established Daivi Varnashram that way. He told him to print books. He printed printed thousands and thousands of books. He wrote his own things. He wrote articles. He had magazines. He had a daily newspaper. He translated and published works from previous acharyas in our line, works from Ramanuja and Madhvacharya, to name two prominent acharyas from other sampradayas. So he certainly fulfilled that. And then, of course, preach Shuddha Bhakti. Now, when his spiritual masters left, basically within the same time frame of 1 year, he wondered, how in the world am I going to carry on? They've given me these instructions to preach Lord Chaitanya's message, the service of Krishna. How can I do that? Who will chastise me? Who will guide me? Who will read what I write and correct or give their approval? So he was feeling very, very down, very discouraged, and very unqualified to measure up to their instructions. 2 or 3 days later, he had a vision, a dream, where Bhaktivinoda Thakura, Gorkashore Das Babaji Maharaj, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, the 6 Goswamis, and the Panchatattva all came and appeared to him. He said, why are you worrying? Distribute Lord Chaitanya's message universally. Expand the service to Lord Chaitanya's name, to his Dham, and to his Kam, Bengali, meaning giving the pure, unadulterated, pure service of the Lord, constitutionally soul to the Supreme Spirit, Supreme Personality of Godhead. With unbreached enthusiasm, broadcast the Bhaktisiddhanta, perfection, the conclusion of Bhakti. We're eternally with you, ready to help. The support of unlimited people, immeasurable opulences, and boundless scholarship awaits the blessing to serve you and to serve your mission. All of them will manifest when required. No worldly hindrances or menace will be able to obstruct this undertaking of yours. We're forever with you. Then he was on fire. He started, he went to Calcutta, established his first center, etc., first center outside the Dham. And now let's talk about Srila Prabhupada's connection, because as I said, when Srila Prabhupada speaks on Bhaktisiddhanta, he always tells of his own connection. So he met Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura in 1922 at Uttadanga Road. Basically, his arm was twisted. We all know these stories, to go there and hear a sadhu. I've seen so many sadhus. And he was also having just finished his college years and got married and had a 1-year-old boy. He was quite busy. And Prabhupada said, his words, not mine, but in his college years he drifted away from his Vaishnava practices. Somehow or other he became absorbed in the theme of the day, which was Gandhi's independence movement. I've seen so many sadhus. No, please, his best friend, Narendra somebody, please, come with me. He's a genuine sadhu. He had met and known the devotees. He had contributed nice donations to the mission. So when they came, they gave him, VIP access. Brought him right up onto the roof, and they saw him. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur immediately said, "You're educated young men. You should take the message of Lord Chaitanya and spread it throughout the Western countries." Srila Prabhupada put up his resistance and debated with him. How can we do that? No one's going to listen to us. We're a subjugated country under British subjugation. And Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, of course, smashed all his feeble excuses, saying, no, the urgency, the need of giving people devotional service, the message of the Lord, that cannot wait. Is not predicated upon anything material or relative of this world. It's the eternal need of all living entities. It has to be done now. Srila Prabhupada happily accepted defeat, and at that moment he accepted Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur within his heart, and he never forgot him from that point on. That's when real Diksha took place. Transcendental knowledge given and a purpose, service was given. He was always meditating on his guru, that sadhu he had met there. So that was in 22, and then he ended up moving to Allahabad, and he carried on with his pharmaceutical business. We know about that. He got to meet the devotees there from Gaudiya Math when they went to the Kumbh Mela and they wanted to establish a center there. He was so happy. He hadn't seen any of the devotees from Gaudiya Math. They didn't have a center there, and he hadn't seen his guru. He was so happy. Yes, I will help you. Yes, thank you. And he introduced him to all his friends, this and that. And at that time, that's when Srila Prabhupada, one of the times, Prabhupada said he only saw his spiritual master 4 or 5 times in his life. So this is... Second one, he said, so my Guru Maharaj is doing parikrama in Koshi. He met up with him there, and they had the opportunity to go see the deity, Sesha Shayi. But it was going to close, so if you want to have darshan, come now. Or Guru Maharaj will be speaking. He will be leaving tomorrow morning. So Srila Prabhupada said, what's the use of I should sit and hear? And we know that next time that he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Allahabad at the center that had been established, and one devotee recommended Srila Prabhupada for initiation, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, yes, I have noted him. He's eager to hear. I will gladly accept him as my disciple. So he also met him at another time around that time, not probably next year, parikrama or whatever, forgive me for the fuzziness of a date, but he also met him at Radhakund. And he took him aside and he explained to him that there's fire in the mutt. Previously, when we were at Uttadanga Road, rent was like 25 rupees, 75 rupees. Both numbers were there. He said, if we came up with 200 rupees a month, everything was so nice. But now there's competition between your godbrothers. They're all saying who will get this room, that room, this opulent marble temple. It was the most opulent temple that they had in the Gaudiya Math. He said, now they're all fighting, squabbling. I would rather take the marble off the temple, sell it, and print books, publish books. And he gave instruction to Srila Prabhupada that he kept for the rest of his life. If you ever get money, print books. Every instruction that his spiritual master gave him, he embraced it to his heart. He never let go of it, and he always meditated how he could do it, how he could possibly do it. Of course, he passed the same instructions on to us. He also saw him at Lokanath Goswami Samadhi in Vrindavan, the Gokulananda Mandir. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was with OBL Kapoor, and he states that our Srila Prabhupada was chanting there at the Samadhi. And he saw his Guru Maharaj come, and he immediately paid his dandavats. And Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur also bowed down to him. And when they got up, they both had tears in their eyes. And our Srila Prabhupada was wiping the tears from his eyes. And OBL Kapoor could see what a special relationship the two had. Now, I make mention of this. I'm a sentimentalist, an emotional fool. The most congenial form of intimacy is service. And Srila Prabhupada was the perfect example of a fully surrendered servant of Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. He was a full moon compared to the tens of thousands of his other god brothers and sisters who were simply stars. So that service is there, but everybody, whether it was Pragya Keshava Maharaj or Srila Sridhar Maharaj, they all knew how special this devotee was. Even though he was a householder, even though he got initiated in 1933, and therefore by etiquette was junior to everybody he'd been preaching since 1919 or 1920. So he got initiated like 13, 14 years. So many senior devotees. And despite being senior in age and in qualification, he always bowed down to all the Prabhus, what to speak of sannyasis. He observed Vaishnava etiquette perfectly. He was so humble. One time, Pragya Keshava Maharaj was preaching at a preaching center he had in Calcutta. This is in the late 30s, after his Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta had wrapped up his pastimes. And a big crowded assembly, and one householder came in the back door. And Keshava Maharaj saw him, stopped everything he was doing, and told him, "Hey, come here, Abhay, Prabhu, come here." And he told his servant Narayan Maharaj, "You go," and he led him through the crowd, and he very humbly, very hesitatingly, and then he put him right next to him on the platform where he was speaking. And Narayan Maharaj was blown away because he'd never seen his spiritual master stop his pravachan and give this kind of respect to somebody. And he like looked at him like with inquiring eyes, "Who is this devotee?" And after the talk, Keshava Maharaj told him, "This is a very special devotee. He is very dear to my spiritual master. You should associate with him. You should take instruction from him. You should serve him." All the god brothers of Srila Prabhupada understood that he had a very special relationship with his Guru Maharaj. There's the famous pastime, one of the 4 or 5 times when he came to Mayapur and Bhaktisiddhanta was chanting japa up on the porch. Very concentrated, loudly and forcefully. Many top sannyasis were there and some brahmacharis, and he came up the stairs. Some of them would criticize, "Fools rush in where angels dare not tread." He's just a householder. A neophyte, devotee in comparison to all the others. And when he came up the stairs very humbly, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur saw him and motioned, "Here, come with me." And he took him into his room and shut the door. And they had a prolonged conversation. Srila Prabhupada in one lecture said, "My spiritual master discussed so many things with me." And when he came out, the devotees noted, boy, was Abhay Charanara Prabhu effulgent and blissful, having received the mercy from Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. The other time worth mentioning is that in, what year was it? He passed away in 36, so I think they came back in 34 or 5. One of the preachers from London, Bhaktivinoda Thakura, in fact, the dying wish of his mother Bhagavati Devi to her son Bhaktisiddhanta was, "Please take this message of Lord Chaitanya's and preach it throughout the world. So he wanted that so desperately. And he sent some sannyasis to London. They also preached in Germany, but not very successful. And one came back. He had been sending money, the lifeblood of the, sending rupees to England to support them in their preaching efforts. But he came back by boat, and he came to when they were having a parikrama in Navadvip, and they were at Champahati. And the Bajari there, he was a young devotee. He took up puja there. That was where they would have the camp, the base for their parikrama. Thousands and thousands of devotees would pitch their tents and go on parikrama there. So anyway, when this devotee returned from abroad, having basically failed in his attempts to preach. I want to get the exact words. It would be so nice. That's the 40s. Here we come to the 30s. If it was my book, Balaram, it'd be all I'd be all marked up. Okay, the 30s. Krishna Chaitanya. So anyway, he was giving a speech that, I want to say it, Nayanananda. Yeah, so that'd be the 40s maybe? No, it has to be 30s because Bhaktisiddhanta was still there. Okay, Nayananda, 30, page 30. This is worth waiting for. I apologize for being so spaced out. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that he told how it was the vision of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura that this would happen, spreading Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings throughout the world, the Western countries. And his mother had given him the same request before departing. Consequently, he had been willing to take the lifeblood of the Gaudiya Math and funds to send devotees there to preach, but so far these attempts had been largely unsuccessful. Okay, basically that's the setup. He's speaking to all the devotees. He goes, at that moment in his talk, I noticed that something very mysterious was happening. Guru Maharaj was looking out at the large crowd of devotees, especially in the front where all the sannyasis and brahmacharis in red cloth were. Then he turned his head and looked over to his left side, where I was standing, the Pujari of the deities there, Gaur Gadadhar. He was looking intently at someone and became silent for a long moment. I happened to look behind me, and I clearly saw the person with whom he was making eye contact was Abhay Charnaravinda Prabhu, our Srila Prabhupada. I thought they were looking at each other in a special way. Then Guru Maharaj again addressed the audience in front of him and said, but I have a prediction. However long in the future it may be, I predict that one of my disciples will cross the ocean, and that devotee will bring back the whole world. When Srila Prabhupada helped establish the Bombay Center, he, Sridhar Maharaj, and Goswami, Bhakti Shranga Goswami Maharaj thought that Abhay Charnaravinda Prabhu should be the head. He had so many friends, he was so influential in making it happen, he was so intelligent, so powered by his guru. But Bhaktisiddhanta personally told Srila Prabhupada, no, you should stay where you are for now. In the future you'll do the needful. Prabhupada said at the time, I didn't understand what he meant. Bhaktisiddhanta even gave him money at that time and said, here, you keep it in your charge, and whenever the mutt needs something, then you give them some money. So he was trusted by his guru. And of course, we know the famous letter, a fortnight written, he received a response a fortnight before he left this world. And he said, you have so many disciples, sannyasis and brahmacharis, I'm just a householder. What kind of direct service can I do? And he reiterated the instruction he received on the very first day, very first time he met him. And that was that you should take up the preaching of Lord Chaitanya in the English-speaking language. This will do good for you, and it'll do good for those who hear you. So our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, accepted the instructions of his guru as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur accepted the instructions from his guru and his father. And now it's understood that we're meant to take up the instructions. In concluding, Srila Prabhupada said, after glorifying Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, so you should know it, that this movement should be pushed on. This should not be neglected. I'm glad that you're catching the ideas very nicely and trying. Simple thing, you chant sincerely and follow the rules and regulations. The rules and regulations are not very strict, they're very simple. He also said, so this, today is the appearance day. So we should honor this Titi very respectfully and pray to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami that we are engaged in your service. So give us strength, give us intelligence, and we are being guided by your servant. So in this way we have to pray. And one last thing. On this particular day of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's advent, try to remember his words, that he wanted that many books should be published about our philosophy, and it should be given to the English-knowing public especially, because English language is now the world language. So on this day, particularly on the advent of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I'd especially request my disciples who are cooperating with me that try to publish books, as many as possible, and distribute throughout the whole world. That will satisfy Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as well as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Thank you very much. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ke, Srila Prabhupada Ke, Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ke. Fast day, so no breakfast to run out to. Did anybody have any extra glorification or question? Thank you, Dravida Prabhu. Attentively listening.
There's that amazing pastime. He was giving Brahman to people that weren't Brahmanas.
Bhaktisiddhanta?
Yeah, and when they did the parikram in Vrindavan, they were throwing rocks at the parikram. They closed the doors to the temples. And then there was at one point, I don't know if it was in Vrindavan or Navadvip, but there was so much against him that they went to the constable and said, we want to take his life. And they gave him 50,000 rupees to, please be, just don't, just let it be. 50,000, that was a lot of money. That's like,
I just wrote it. It's a minor detail because the Leela, the essence of it is dead on, no pun intended. 25,000, which at that time is immense.
Oh, it was 25,000.
25,000. That was in Vrindavan, the constable. And of course he said, no, he's a sadhu. I cannot accept this. And if my memory serves me correct, shops and temples closed everywhere, whether it was Vrindavan Parikrama or Navadvip Parikrama. But my memory, I've heard it told that was in Navadvip, and that Sridhar Maharaj, who at the time was wearing white, not a sannyasi, that he took Bhaktisiddhanta, the two of them went inside a household, or inside a home. Was it Keshava Maharaj? Thank you for making that right. Bhagya Keshava Maharaj. And he took the cloth of his spiritual master, gave him his white cloth, and Bhaktisiddhanta was able to escape the attempted murder at that time by stoning. That's like a biblical death procedure, stoning. And he escaped that way. And that was in Navadvip. And then also, this is very interesting, just show how evil the world can be. In his late age, in the latter years of his life, he lived up to his 70s, 74 I believe, but he had a hernia. And essentially he required an operation, but he refused to take the operation. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur refused to have a hernia operation because he was convinced, that's the verb they use, that the doctor would try and kill him. Was he? Thank you. Hare Krishna, stupid of me. So, but anyway, heavy duty. Just see how averse and envious the conditioned souls can be, especially those who say they're representing religion, they're representing God. You know, they were taking their income away. Birthplace of Lord Chaitanya is here, not in modern Navadvip city. You're giving initiation to Brahmins, you're darn right. This is what Scripture says. I mean, so we are warned by Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta, if you take up the message and preach it uncompromisingly, then as Srila Prabhupada said, if they had understood what he was presenting here in America, they would have tried to kill him. The demons don't want to see the glories of the Lord spread and accepted by everybody. So, following the footsteps of Prahlad, there may be obstacles, there may be threats, so many tests, but if we persevere by the mercy of the spiritual master, then all blessings will be there, all success. That's all we can hope for, to please Guru and Krishna.
And he said, if you get money, print books.
Anybody else? Thank you, Vijay Prabhu. From the book distributor's mouth, perfect way to end the discussion. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Bol Tapas.
Prabhu, I think YouTube chat, there is a comment and there is a question from a devotee.
All right, my Prabhus will leave, but if you want to go ahead and share it with us.
Okay. This is from Harshit Jain. He's in Kolkata.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
He said, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I realized that as a kid I had made a lot of mistakes, and it is really painful when I look back and recall those days. How should I move on in life and do something good in life?
What a wonderful question. The fact that you realize that you've committed so many mistakes is your good fortune. The fact that you want to rectify them and take advantage of the human form of life that you have now is even more manifestation of your good fortune. So associate with the devotees in this movement, take guidance from the Vaishnavas. If you really are sincere in your desire, the Lord will lead you to the shelter of a spiritual master. But all of us are supposed to be aware of our past shortcomings and sins and offenses. We're all meant to do that we are unqualified to serve Guru, Vaishnavas, and Krishna, but they are overwhelmingly merciful. Even Jagai and Madai were allowed to take up devotional service to the Lord. So what to speak of us? So in a repentant mood, we take to devotional service and pray that the merciful Lord and His devotee will accept what we can offer to them. You tell us what to do, we'll do our best to do it. You tell us what not to do, we'll neglect that. In this way, associate with the devotees and cultivate this process of Krishna consciousness, practicing and sharing Krishna consciousness, and don't ever lose sight of that. Humility is the foundation on which blessings from Guru and Krishna are received. To the degree we're proud and think, oh yeah, I'm special, or I didn't do this, I didn't do that, but that devotee certainly. To that degree we put a wall up. We ourselves keep the mercy from entering into our lives, into our hearts. So humility and repentance, it's very powerful and actually necessary for making advancement in Krishna consciousness. So just chant Hare Krishna, associate with devotees, and follow the processes Srila Prabhupada offers. Please. Anything else, Tapas Prabhu?
Nothing else, Prabhu.
Thank you for your service. Thank you, Prabhus. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for allowing me to serve you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.